Hello, members. Tom Morrison here from the home office of the Metal Treating Institute in Nashville, Tennessee. I am wearing all my MTI garb today because we are passionate and bleed blue, MTI blue. So we're here to talk about technical specifications today. A couple things. One, just welcome to the show. And down in the bottom, if you've been on Zoom, you know where the chat box is. We have enabled that. So if you have any questions whatsoever for any of our team of the Technical Standards Committee, you can type them in there, and we'll be monitoring that, and we'll answer those back, as well as some people may want to, if you have a good comment that you want to make on an issue that's come up, please make them in the chat box. So MTI, I want to mention one big thing that's going on with Metal Treating Institute right now that we want everybody to really soak into, and that's what's called scholarships. This year, the MTI Educational Foundation has given away $80,000 in scholarships in $2,500 or $5,000 increments. And if one of the students goes above and beyond in their application, they're going to get an extra 10 grand, so an opportunity to get $15,000 in scholarships. And it ain't cheap to go to school these days. So you can go to mtieducationalfoundation.com. That's mtieducationalfoundation.com, and it's got everything. Forward that link to all your employees, to all your interns, anybody you're connected with. Get the word out and tell them there's 80 grand sitting there for engineers, metallurgists, material science majors coming through with MTI. Application is going to be done in April, by the end of April, awarded in May, and we'll announce them in June. So please spread the word in your social media, with your family, with your friends. So with that said, let's get into our technical standards talk. We just came from a big NADCAP meeting last week. Lots of good interaction we're going to talk about today. So guys, let's start with just introductions for anybody that's listening that has not heard or know who you are. So Stephen, we'll start with you. Give a little bit of 15 seconds on who Stephen Keckler is.
Hi, so I'm Stephen Keckler, as Tom said. I'm the process metallurgist for ThermTech of Waukesha. I've been with ThermTech for about 6.5 years now. I currently sit on several ASTM committees, mainly focused on hardness testing and metallography. Outside of that, I'm an active member of ASM, currently chairing the Milwaukee chapter.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Bob?
Okay, I'm Bob Ferry. I'm with FPM Heat Treating. We're in Chicago. And quite honestly, I'm involved in the CQI9, which is the automotive group, as well as NADCAP and AMEC, and I try to keep pace with all of that as well. I've been at FPM now for about 40-some years, and I'm Vice President of Engineering and Quality here.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Roy?
Hi, I'm Roy Atkins. I'm with Braddock Metallurgical. I'm the Director of Corporate Quality. I basically am the chairman for the AMEC committee. I'm also the Supplier Support Committee representative for the Heat Treat Task Group for NADCAP.
Thank you, Roy. Mr. Ed Engelhard.
Ed Engelhard, Solar Atmospheres. I'm Vice President of Corporate Quality, Corporate Metallurgist. Been here about 12, 13 years now, and prior to that, I ran my own heat treat shop. I'm active in NADCAP, AMEC, and AESQ.
I want to thank each of you. I mean, all y'all, and Joanna Lisa could not make it today, so y'all will be taking on her reporting. But I mean, this has been a backbone of what's happening in the world of technical specifications with NADCAP, AMEC. Everything going on has been very exciting. So I appreciate all your hard work and the time that you put into this. So to kick it off, Bob, let's go to the automotive world. What's happening in the world of automotive?
Okay, so we are going through that rewrite of CQI9, and it's going to revision 5, and the plan is to try to get this thing finalized by the end of the year, right? So it's going to take a huge effort to make that happen. And so far we've broken it down. Like, we used to meet every month, and we still do, by the whole committee, the whole group, but we've broken into sub-teams now to where we are working on individual process tables and sub-teams and all of that. So, and we're doing this and meeting like every week or every 2 weeks in order to get the process tables done for this new revision. And we're adding some things as needed, but it's not like a huge major change. It's more clarification and trying to add some key points into these process tables that we feel are more appropriate for the technology. And right now, we've completed process tables A, B, C, D, and E, and L. And the ones that we're currently working on are B, which is nitriding, F, G, and H. And those are almost finalized, and obviously working then into the pyrometry section of CQI-9. That's the one that's going to take more time because it's just so detailed, and you want to make sure that you got everything right with how we're putting the specifications together and the requirements in that section.
Bob, do you see them trying to move anywhere near towards 2750 to try and, or they're still just, because they kind of, are off on their own with their pyrometry requirements.
Yes.
It'd be nice if they could, since everybody kind of, independent heat treaters work to all just a slew of different specs, including automotive, and it would be nice if we knew we were all in conformance with the same pyrometry specs, since that's the one thing that ties us all together. Are those furnaces?
Yeah, so I can tell you that they are keeping pace with what's going on with AMS 2750 with those revisions, and they kind of look at their own document to see if it makes sense for the automotive world to put those requirements in. And in some cases we utilize that, and in some cases we don't. So I would say that to answer your question, no, it's never going to go to where they're going to just go AMS 2750 because they feel that's too, it's putting too much of a burden on their heat treats. So
captive ones, you mean?
Yeah, the captives, right? So they're AMS 2750 liked, if you will. So that's a great question.
That's unique. I've never heard the word like in 2750. Yeah. I've never heard those words put together before.
Does anybody like 2750?
Doug Schuler.
Yeah, but we do keep pace with what's going on there, and obviously, I'm part of that committee, so I'm up to speed with what's going on with 2750, and I try to get some of those things incorporated that make sense, but they haven't gone to the 10th of a degree, in their temperature readings and all of that. And see, when 2750 starts going in that direction, automotive says, this isn't making good metallurgical sense anymore. So they have their own ideas on that. Anyway, so we are working through that pyrometry section. We started on it. We've gotten through all the thermocouple requirements, and now we're going into TUSs and SATs, and we'll just continue on that path until we get this document written the way that we had wanted. And a lot of the rewrite has to do with people that have sent questions in, either to myself or to the AIAG committee itself, asking questions on, well, this is my situation, what do I do? And they try to incorporate, that question, because obviously the spec isn't clear enough for them to understand what they need to do. And so we're trying to incorporate some of that into the spec so that there isn't any questions like that anymore. Then another thing is they do have a consideration for what's going on in the world, because they've got automotive companies all over the world, and language has an impact on how you say things in the document. And we get feedback from our friends in Europe about some of that sometimes, because we don't speak real good English over here, and they translate it, it doesn't come out right. So yeah, they're working on that as well. One thing that did come up is Ford had suggested that we need to add a new question to the assessment requiring an annual emergency procedure validation or training to ensure everyone knows what to do in case of an emergency. So they suggested some options. So apparently Ford had a failure mode happen when a heat treater had a fire and their parts got mixed, due to they're not having an adequate procedure and it wasn't followed properly. What they did have wasn't followed right. So they're looking now to incorporate something in the document for requiring annual training of this. And it's kind of open, so we haven't exactly settled on the wording. We're probably going to do that at the next meeting, but they're looking to make sure that people are have some kind of validation training, whether it be a written test, or procedural, maybe you do a simulation, something like that, in order to ensure that everybody knows when the furnace has an incident, or if you have a power failure, everybody needs to know what to do, and how to protect the product and keep it from having product mix, and mixing like heat treated product with green product. I mean, all of that. So that's going to be one thing that's going to be added to the document. I think that's about all I had for the CQI9 this time. But
so, Bob, I don't think I've ever asked this question. What is I get to go to the NADCAP meetings? What in AMEC? What is the makeup of the CQI9 committee? I mean, how many people are on that committee?
Oh, so on the calls, there's got to be 20, 25 people on the calls. And the makeup is, the OEMs, the 3 OEMs. Here, I still consider Stellantis a U.S. company, but Stellantis, you've got Ford, GM. We have representation from a lot of the other companies like ZF, and we even have a CAT person on there, representative from Alcoa Aluminum, and there's several other people that are involved in the heat treat world.
Right.
Most of them captives. It could be American Axle, etc.
Okay. Never heard the breakdown. Just thought I'd ask today.
Yeah. I'll get you who it is that's on that committee, and that'll give you a good idea.
Right.
I can't remember them all off the top of my head, so if anybody's listening, I apologize.
No, not a problem. I thought
I think it was kind of like, what? How many people? I mean, is it a big group?
Yeah, it's about 20 to 25, but they do their meetings. Most of it is through Zoom calls or Teams meetings, where people are calling in from all over the world. Like the guys from ZF are in Germany, and they're calling in, and so yeah, we get representation from everywhere. We've had people from India on the call, people from Mexico. They have a ZF facility there as well, and every once in a while you see somebody from there get on the call. But yeah, it's one of those things where they have a meeting place that you can go to in Detroit, and they do the Teams meeting from there, from that room. But then all these other people are joining in through remotely.
Probably Southfield. I think that's where IJQ is at, somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
How many independent heat treaters attend these meetings?
So there are a couple of heat treaters on there, but there's not a ton of them. So we've got representation from Chris Izak. He's from Albers. He's on the committee, as well as myself, and he's got another guy, Vishal, out of our Milwaukee location. He's on the committee as well. So pretty much, yeah, it's Albers, FTM. Yeah, those are the ones that are there every meeting. So
awesome.
So, used to be commercial steel treat, but they're not there anymore.
Well, we appreciate all your work, Bob. I know you give us a good voice on there, and we appreciate everything you're doing. I know Chris is on this call as well. I can see his name. So, Chris, we appreciate your taking the time and being a part of that with Bob as well. So, not everybody's in aerospace. Not everybody's in automotive. but everybody does hardness testing, which means Stephen Keckler is the champion and the star of this show because he's going to touch everybody in the world of specification today. So, Stephen, you're kind of the most important person in the room today. So let's hear what's going on in ASTM and hardness testing.
Oh gosh, Tom. Well, now I'm blushing. I feel a little bit of pressure. There are lots of cool things going on with ASTM right now. Some big ticket items to look forward to on the horizon is most of us use portable hardness testers to ASTM E110, or a lot of us do. That spec, there's a couple big things going on. One, we're in the process of a major revision just throughout the document. If everything proceeds apace, that will be going to publication later this year. We'll see what happens. It's out for ballot right now. There are negatives. They're going to have to be addressed, but I don't think there's going to be a huge lot of fighting over this one. In addition, there is a new precision and bias study that is being worked on for this. This is something that's been in the works for a while. When we sat down for data review last time, we found some issues. So we're going back, doing some additional testing. Nominally, that's on about the same trajectory for E110, just to get one revision release with all of these changes, including the new P&B. So look forward to that in the near future. E140 is in process of getting a new revision. We're working towards adding some new data tables. That's probably a couple years out at least before that is real. But actually just right now there's an active ballot going on for updating the reporting section of that document. And it's basically just updating the language to bring it in line with the changes that have been going on with E10, E18, E92. All of these are requirements that have already existed. This is, in a lot of ways, for E140, mostly just changing the language to make it really clear and explicit. For those of you who may not be as familiar with some of the changes that have been going on with that lately, essentially it's a matter of ensuring that when conversion is done, we're reporting that in an appropriate way. It's been a common issue. I'm not quite sure the status of all of these various specs, but E4 metallography has been very busy this last year with reviewing the specs under their control. A number of those documents I expect to see ballots on in the next few months. And it will probably be near the end of the year, early next year, when we start seeing those actually go live. A370 just recently got a revision, so if you haven't picked up a new copy in the last couple months, you may want to look about doing that. E8, similarly, that's tinsel testing. I know a lot of us do that. That just recently got a revision, so keep your eyes out for that. Those are the big ticket items that I'm aware of right offhand. E18 just recently got a revision too, as of last year. So if you're working to anything other than the 2024 revision of E18, you probably want to get that taken care of. Any questions from the crowd?
I'm not seeing anything out there, Steve. Let me look here.
Yeah, I've been watching the E20 committee, which is thermometry and temperature measurement. And there's a lot of 5-year reviews coming through, but they're pretty much unchanged. Things look actually quite stable in that area. So you shouldn't have much to worry about. 2750 is a handful without seeing changes for the underlying ASTM documents. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I would say if you take nothing else away from today, I would say there's continued work on all of the standard hardness testing specs. So you know which ones you use. Just keep an eye on them. If a number of them have gotten revisions in the last year or so, just make sure you're up to date. There'll be more revisions coming up. And then metallography in particular hasn't had a lot of major updates in a long time. That is changing, and you're going to see a lot of those coming through in the next year or two.
Stephen, one of our members asked if there's anything to report on E10.
E10 last year did get a small revision within the reporting section. So if you are using an older revision, you're going to want to check that. But otherwise, there's some discussions about some changes to E10, but nothing substantive at this point.
All right, well, no further questions. Stephen, thank you so much for your time and bringing that to the table, connecting with everybody. So now let's move into the next section, which will be the AMEC committee. For those of you that are newer to this process in aerospace, AMEC committee writes the rules and laws that you get audited to, and NADCAP enforces and audits to those rules and laws that you get. So we got our great guy, Roy Atkins, who's chair of the committee, on board today. Roy, so give us what's going on with the AMEC committee and what's happening with all the specs there.
We have a lot going on in the AMEC committee right now. I mean, it's gotten to the point where we were trying to do some, we would have a meeting and we'd actually try and tour a plant or something like that. I think that the next one that we're having is going to be in Bethlehem. It's going to be the 275th meeting. It's going to be between April 22nd and April 23rd, and we're going to have a full agenda, I believe, there. So there's not going to be any time to go anywhere or do anything, I believe. You've got 2761. It's coming up for review, which is some of us knew that as the old AMS 6875 mil spec. You've got 2759/3, which is actually in Committee F right now. I believe you may see that published soon. 2759, the 400 series stainless steels. That's we've got somebody working on that. 2769 is, Ed, you well know, is for the vacuum spec, which Ed is the sponsor of that, and he's working on that. We've also got 2759/7 for carburized that we've got a sponsor for that's being worked on. 2770 and 2771, both for aluminum. One's for casting and one's for material. Those are both being worked on as well, along as if I don't know how many people do uphill quenching, but AMS 2767 is being worked on right now, and the ever popular 2759 base standard is actually being worked on by Sarah Lombardo right now, even as we speak. So if you want to come to those meetings and have some input on some of those standards, then I would encourage you to do so. And of course, 2750 is also always, we're taking basically parking lot items, but that's on a 2-year review instead of the other standards that I mentioned earlier. Those are all on 5-year review, so they're coming up or have already come up on their 5-year review, and that's why we're working on those. But 2750 is now on a 2-year review. And we're already getting some things together and a lot of clarification points for pyrometry. But there are some things also, and I don't mean to get everybody mixed up, but so 2750 being the pyrometry spec, that's something we're even getting input on people. We were getting that on at NADCAP back just last week in Los Angeles, Anaheim. 2759, the base spec for the 2759 series, let me just say this real quick. There's a lot of things that we're trying to take out of the slashes and kind of move those. There's certain things that are common and that need to move down to the base spec so that we'll flow that down through the base spec. And you won't be looking, you will be looking at 2 different documents, but you won't be looking everywhere for everything. So that's kind of like the premise behind working on that document and trying to get some commonality between that series of specifications. We got a lot of our meeting size used to hover around 25 people, and now I think we're up into like the 40s right now.
The last 2 meetings have been I think 49 have been both of them. It's been incredible.
So there's a lot going on. I encourage people to come to those meetings, but I also encourage you to go to the commodity committees as well, because once AMEC writes it and it leaves us, it goes to a commodity committee, and that's where they're going to, sometimes it gets a pass, and then other times it'll take another beating. So it'll be a while before anything gets. But that's pretty much the gist of what's going on right now. I think I summed it up pretty quickly there.
Yeah,
Um,
you went way too quick. Right.
yeah, for normal, I'm
So,
sure.
I did have a couple questions. So with the 2750, um, I'm finding it to be problematic to have that on a 2-year review. I
Yeah.
think because it's so far out of sync with 7102/8, it's very unsettling when you have to go through audits and you don't even know, now you got to specify, well, which revision are you running to, and it just doesn't fall in line with each other. And then by the time they do get synced together, now you got to revise it again. 2750 is going to revise again. So I
Yeah,
don't feel it's a good thing to do.
I I don't see it going for the long haul. I think that we realize that there's a lot of things that need to be fixed and clarified. So I don't think that it's going to be something you're going to see go on forever. I think once that team is comfortable with the document they have, they'll be fine with it. But they were still making changes to the AC 712/8 document as well. And don't forget, there is kind of a caveat in that 21 in that NADCAP checklist that basically says you tell the auditor what spec you're working to or what revision you're working to, and that's going to go a long way. Not to mention the fact that there is a better relationship now between the heat treat task group and AMEC, so that they're actually reaching out now and saying, is this a finding or not, or is this a problem? So, and I understand, a lot of people are concerned with the 2-year review, but for right now, it's really, I think it's working. I think we get a lot of positive feedback on it. Do I see it going on forever? No, I don't see it going on forever. The same thing got brought up last week, actually, in California as well. It's like, how long do you foresee this going on? But look, folks, we can't get into the situation to where NADCAP drives AMEC. Okay.
Right.
That just can't happen. So, and I've already gotten some signals from some people that want us to make some shoulds, some shalls, and things of that nature in order to make some of these things enforceable in the checklist. And I think that, and I've said this to a lot of people that were there that are on the supplier side of things, that we have to be very careful with an AMEC that we don't start turning things into, the written rule or law of the land just in order to make the subscribers at NADCAP happy. So right now we find it prudent to be on 2 years, and we also realize that at some point in time we're probably going to have to reverse course and go to 5. But for right now, the things that we're hearing and everything, we just think it's prudent to stay with 2 years.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
No worries. We feel your pain, honestly, and it's not that we're not talking about it and that is a forever thing. So, just ride it out with us for a little while. We'll get it all straightened out. Hopefully we'll come out with a better document in the end. That is the goal.
All right, great. Thank you.
I think it'd be great for you to reinforce for everybody listening in and watching later on that the people writing the specs are not this group of engineers, and you're watching it happen. The people that are writing the specs are people like you on this call, engineers, metallurgists. And so when you come to these meetings, you get to get involved at a level that's not just watching. You're getting to actually be the person that's helping author and write the rules you're going to live by.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the whole thing. We're not trying to take someone else's spec and make it fit the SAE spec or anything like that. I mean, obviously there's some good ideas out there, and if it sounds good and it makes good sense, then then we can talk about it and we'll get a consensus on the room and we'll see how it goes. But there is no one authority or one person that's making the decisions on what goes into a spec. And by the way, I mean, these things get balloted back and forth in AMEC, like 3, 4, or 5. I mean, sometimes this can go on forever. So you can make a comment. You know, if you become a voting member, you can make a comment on there, depending on whether it's an editorial comment, which is basically just changing some words, or it's a technical comment. Now, some people do put editorial comments in that, come to find out, they're very technical. But they bring up some good points, you know, some good points of view. So it's not we're not pushing saffron specs into you know, an AMS spec. We're not pushing Boeing specs. Everybody has their say. They get to, and you know, more people the better, I say, because the thing of it is everybody brings a different perspective to the table when it comes to a meeting like that. And even having the heat treat supplier base in there brings a lot to the table. Because I mean, especially with wire manufacturers, and it's not just one wire manufacturer. You know, you've got 2 or 3 in there that can bring data to the table and say, this is what this thermocouple is capable of doing.
Yeah.
Real quick, I mean, I'll throw a few things out there for you, some tidbits for 2750. It's looking like the 10th of a degree is going to come back to haunt us yet again. It seems as though when it comes to guaranteed soaks and things of this nature and calculating soak time, the 10th of a degree seems to be an issue, especially when it comes to you know, automated systems. And so we're looking at, maybe possibly we'll talk about making sure the equipment needs to be calibrated to the 10th of a degree, which means you'll still have to have something that could read to a 10th of a degree, but that when it comes to processing times, that's not going to be a factor. It's not going to have to appear on your chart recorder or something along those lines. The other thing is there's some people that are concerned about some of these MGOs, as thin as they are and running for as many U's as whether they're capable or not of doing that. That's we don't know yet. The data is being collected on that even as we speak. So there's a lot of things in 2750 that still maybe need to be looked at. And that's one of the reasons why it is on the schedule that it's on right now. And once those things get taken care of, then hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up and put it back on the 5-year review again.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, I do agree with a lot of the things that you just said as far as the AMEC committee goes, and I will say that with your leadership, that committee has become more receptive to questions from the audience with recommendations or whatever. So I thank you for all the work that you're doing there on that AMEC committee. It's really made a difference. And I think that's probably why you're seeing an increase in attendance at those meetings.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate that. I mean, I think that you have to try and foster conversation at those meetings. That's one of the reasons why if you go to a meeting, you see me there, I'm not like some chairmen that sit down at the table and take questions all day long. I walk the room, you know, and if that looks like a lot of young people come in there, and that's what we need in this industry right now. And they feel as though, you know, that who am I to get involved in this conversation? I've only got a couple years in, or I'm just out of school. And, you know, it's like, I can see that, you know, they want to say something. And you know, I'm not putting them on the spot to be mean or anything like that, but I'm trying to garner some participation. And you'll find that once you get them talking once or twice, they feel a little more at ease and will get involved in the conversation. So
Absolutely.
that's something we try and foster, is communication.
You know, Roy, and you just touched on a big thing, which my hat's off to you how you're doing it. But when you sit in that room, in a lot of industries, the younger generation, they're kind of told to sit in the back. You only came out of high school or college. You don't have a lot of time to talk. But I mean, you do a great job, really do. And I think I've talked to some of the younger people in the room, and they really feel empowered and confident to speak up and tap into their younger knowledge that they have. So we're all learning from one another. So it's been a great experience to see that happen.
I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Awesome. So anything else on AMEC? Oh, by the way, Roy, did you say the number is 1962?
ARP 1962. No, I did not say so. Forgive me. So that is, of course, that is a recommended, but seems to be the law of the land when it comes to training. And Tom, you are the sponsor of that, and it looks like that's went to committee, and they're voting on that as well. And again, I want to be clear that AMEC is the floor to get a lot of this stuff through, just like ARP 1962 and 2750 and the 2759 series. But I would also encourage some of you to go to these commodity committee meetings, because that will push that right over the line for us. So, everybody can do their thing, basically.
Right.
Pick your poison, I guess I should say, right?
Absolutely.
Whichever you want to go to.
Roy, we appreciate all the work you're doing leading AMEC. It's really making a big difference in the industry. So real quick before we jump into Ed and NADCAP, MTI is very involved sponsoring one or two of the AMEC meetings a year. We sponsor a couple events at NADCAP, and those things don't come cheap. I mean, it's like 22K that we put out for the work that's being done and the events that we put on at those meetings. And I just always like to mention, we have 4 companies this year that reached out and said, Tom, we want to help you with that in your budget. And so just I want to note that, GeoCorp, Gasbury Furnace Group, Aerospace Testing and Pyrometry, and Quaker Houghton all dived in and helped us fund all of our technical standards work this year. So just hats off to those guys and the ladies that work for them. And thank you very much.
Yeah, AMEC, on behalf of AMEC, we are very thankful for that support.
Yeah, we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it the level we do those things and bring the members. They're very lively. That's what I love about our events when we go to these meetings. They're very lively with the members, just talking and sharing and getting to know each other and sharing what they feel about the different issues. So it takes the intimidation away from being in a large room of 200 people down to about 40 people, and they really connect at a big level. So good stuff. But thank you to them. So with that said, Ed, let's move into you and let you start working down through NADCAP and the Heat Treat Task Group and the MCA.
So just to follow Roy's, I do go to the AMEC commodity meetings because there's a lot of heat treating in those material specs, and there's not a lot of heat treaters there to provide advice or guidance. And that's what drew me to it. But yes, because they vote to follow on what comes out of AMEC, it's important to be there. So I invite other heat treaters to show up at those commodity meetings, because they're actually pretty important to the best functioning of AMEC, I think. So anyway, with that said, so yeah, we just came off of NADCAP meeting last week. I've started going to NMC, so the amount of time I spend at the Heat Treat Task Group has been somewhat limited. I'm hoping that'll change with the new NMC meeting format. But with that said, MTI hosted a great pre-meeting on Monday afternoon before the STG meeting got together later that afternoon. We had nice turnout and a lot of interest, and that is great because it brings some awareness and concern right to the table when the NADCAP suppliers get together later that afternoon at the first open meeting on Monday. We had, just looking at my notes here real quick, we had questions from the floor about AC 7000 that seems to be enjoying scope creep with QMS questions. The most recent being a requirement that if you have certain kind of changes that occur in your organization, you have to notify PRI, the NADCAP program, within 60 days of the occurrence. And there will subsequently be a question in AC 7000 to that effect. So the auditor will be looking to see that you made appropriate notifications in a timely manner. So that'll be the next revision of AC 7000. I suspect it's going to show up here pretty quick for review, because that's an NMC checklist. AC 7102/5, originally just hardness and conductivity, has now been expanded to include metallography, microhardness testing, and room temperature tensile testing. It's kind of stuck between MTL and the Heat Treat Task Group because of very significant differences in what requirements are going to be imposed through that criteria. And it's gotten to the point where it's the process between MTL, Materials Test Lab, and the heat treat task group has kind of stalled while we go back and we look at the procedure, the operating procedure, and NADCAP number 1120, which handles agreements between task groups about how they're going to share criteria. And until that gets resolved, I don't see anything happening with 7102/5. I can tell you, as regards 1120, there is going to be, I know I have really, really strong opinions about what I think should be done when criteria is shared. And I've passed that along to the sub-team that's working that at NMC. And when it comes to ballot, if I don't see the stuff I lobbied for in that ballot, I'm going to disapprove, and I'm going to have a mountain of technical comments. So this is going to be a little while coming to get through this. With that said, the biggest sticking points are the materials test lab wants to flow proficiency testing down, which means that you would periodically have to submit certain types of samples and specimens to an accredited laboratory on a blind basis, both of you doing the test and comparing your results to see if your lab is in line with an accredited facility. Then the other thing is there's a lot of round robin stuff that's also in the MTL checklist that we have not been doing in the heat treat checklist. And then another area of concern is, and this is actually getting serious discussion, is the possibility of requiring suppliers in heat treat who want to do testing and write a certificate of conformance to be ISO 17025, as well as most of us are AS 9100 or AC 7004. I really, really object to that outright. I can't even begin to buy that. So we'll see what's going to happen. There's a lot of water that's got to pass under the bridge before either of those two documents gets to ballot and gets through ballot in particular. But that was the big topic, both in terms of as far as heat treaters are concerned relative to NADCAP Management Council, as well as in the heat treat task group.
That could greatly change the way you handle your documentation within your scope of operations, because here's the problem now. Now we can't issue a certificate of conformance. It might, and I had a sidebar with the heat treat task group chair, and I said, this, you're walking a fine line here, because now what are you going to call it? I mean, I guess we can tiptoe around it and call it a certificate of process conformance, because now that's what we're trying to do. Now we're trying to sell MTL this bill of goods that, and I don't want to demean it or anything, but that we're doing process conformity testing. It's not that we're not doing actual testing of things. And these labs that Ed's talking about sending these specimens out to be checked for proficiency testing, guess what kind of labs these just happen to be? MTL accredited labs.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
So it's a money grab for them as well.
Yeah, it is, and it's a very serious. In this letter that I sent after last week's meeting, my closing statement was that part of the program requirements are that, one, you don't put out audit criteria for which there was no written standard, period. End of discussion. It's in our operating document, and it's not even open to discussion. And number two, we can't willy-nilly add additional days to the audit because of the cost consequences to the suppliers. Right. And that used to get a lot more discussion in NMC than it has in recent years. And I wanted to raise both of those issues because clearly MTL has been writing audit criteria questions to standards that do not exist, meaning they're making the standard in the question. That's not at all what NADCAP is about. I'm sorry, it just isn't.
So I'm starting to get the feeling that they're going to try and push these things through AMEC. So
well, they may, but
make them requirements.
Then they get to go through the process where it belongs, but it doesn't belong at NADCAP for sure.
Right, but that's why we need to be at AMEC, and we need to
keep, exactly.
writing those rules. That's exactly the reason why.
Yep. And then AC 7102/1 is the brazing checklist. Sundar Rajan is heading up a sub team, and they're going to do a pretty substantial overhaul on that. Everybody in the subscriber side of the E-Tree task group thinks that the brazing checklist is not very value added, and particularly as regards testing and test requirements. And I know Sunder has been on a warpath with the AWS about requiring, the AWS even wrote a new standard C.14, I think it is, for metallographic testing of brazements. And I got a feeling that Sunder is going to try to bring a lot of audit criteria to that. I don't know how much net effect they'll have at the end of the day, because there's a whole lot of us out here where we receive in a completely assembled and alloyed assembly. All we're doing is selling some furnace time. We don't even do inspections except maybe a visual for color or pull through. And then it goes to the customer and they do all the radiographic or whatever, other NDT type testing to qualify the product and the process. So, but there will be changes. And I just want to warn those of you who do brazing that this is on the horizon. It's going to take a while, because I don't think there's unanimity among all the participants about what's going to go in there and what's going to change.
Yeah, for some reason he thought he was going to have a draft ready by June, and the people I talked to say that
I don't
probably not going to be the case.
Yeah, I'm on that sub team, and I don't see that happening at all.
I'm unfortunately on that sub team too, but I was forced on the sub team by the staff engineers.
So one of the things that Johanna's been trying to get done for a couple of years is a survey of sub-tier flow down. And we were told last October it was going to be issued right after the October meeting, which never happened. And we were told in this meeting it was going to be issued right after this meeting. But I will encourage you, if you get a survey from PRI on sub-tier flow down, I beg you, please fill it out. Be brutally honest, because they need to hear about flow down and flow down issues.
Yeah, that hasn't come out yet, right?
No, it has not been issued yet. No. Other things from the floor from the supplier meeting on Monday afternoon, there was a concern about having a finding written against not recording flow rate during a TUS using a gas atmosphere. There were people that had concerns about the radiation test. It's radiation test that got kind of caught in limbo between 2750 and 2770. It's going to be there. It's still a requirement. You're still going to have to do it. And then the other thing we discussed, and this was very interesting, we had a discussion about how to challenge findings. And as it turns out, at the SSC meeting, probably the best breakout session they've had, and I've been dealing with them for 30 years, they had a breakout session on challenging findings at the Supplier Support Committee meeting, and it was actually good. I mean, usually I'm not a big fan of how they do breakouts. This one was useful. I mean, it was actually helpful to everybody in that room, and especially the newer suppliers. It was great to see. Everybody was worried, oh, but should we talk about challenging findings? And I don't know. I'm like, yeah, of course you should challenge them, because they're not always right, and they deserve to be knocked down. Because then, if you don't, they become part and parcel of what you do every day, even though it's not necessary. You don't need that extra expense. Nobody does.
My question to one person was, do you like having double majors?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're setting yourself up for.
Yeah, exactly. So in the NADCAP Management Council, there was quite a lot going on. They've redone the meeting format. So I think those of us who are on a commodity as well as NMC are going to be able to attend quite a bit of each now, which we couldn't do before. They're trying to stand up a cybersecurity and a counterfeit products task group within the NADCAP program. I don't know how much effect the net that's going to have on heat treaters. The counterfeit is particularly geared towards the electronics people, because the world is just full of counterfeit stuff. The cybersecurity thing, I mean, whenever we had a discussion and a vote about what to do or where to proceed, I always turned them down, because this is not where we belong in NADCAP. We're not cybersecurity people. This is a whole other world of parties that deal with that now, but that doesn't, they're going for it. So we'll see.
Yeah, SSC is Supplier Support Committee is definitely dipping their toes in the water on that when they've set up I guess an introductory course or something to it to some degree. And I basically told the task group that maybe if that's something people want to see, because they were asking for, what would be a good idea to have training because they're running out of training ideas on the task group. And I said, well, maybe you should go, see how that's applicable to us. We don't know, no one knows. And yeah, we just try and avoid it like the plague, though, one way or the other.
They're also setting up a sub team to study what artificial intelligence might do either within the program. We'll see where that goes. The EAN app, nobody is happy with it. SAE has completely botched the IT area of the whole SAE organization, and they required PRI to drop their IT group and use the SAE group about a year and a half ago, and it's not working as far as I'm concerned. I hear lots of complaints from suppliers about EAN and how clunky and junky it is. And I totally agree. I use it.
That was probably the majority of the questions in the SSC.
Yep.
Was about the EAN situation.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So no one's happy with it. A lot of people feel the legacy software was better than the new software that they got.
As awkward as that was, at least we knew it.
Yeah, we knew what to do with it.
And it functioned. I mean, if it said it would do something, it would do it.
Yeah, because come to find out, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this or not, Ed, but people were they were even talking about writing people up because inside EAN, when you drop your 30-day submission or even reply to your finding, if you're not dropping things in the right box, technically that's a finding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, then just give us one damn box.
Yep. I
we'll
wrote a complaint.
We'll be fine with that.
Yep. I had a quality manager do just that. And I was following along with what he was doing, realized what was going to happen and told him, you got to go put it over in this other one. Then I immediately sent an email to the EAN IT support group and said, those tab descriptions have to be changed. They're misleading the way they're written and they're unhelpful. They don't match the program documents, change those. And you would think that would take 5 minutes to go change the name on a tab. Well, it hasn't been done yet. So do be careful. You want your self-audit to go in the self-audit tab because it's very frustrating indeed. Of course, there's a lot of discussion about Type P advisories. That is the potential product impact advice. It's still a huge problem. Absolutely none of the subscriber representatives there are happy with it because of the volume of emails that they have to wade through to perhaps find the one thing that may be a problem for their supplier. So they're supposedly working on a way to streamline that.
Yeah, supposedly there's supposed to be an announcement coming down the pipe within the next month or two, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, me neither.
Let's see. Program metrics are under review. Among them that I took notes on, audits open greater than 90 days in the red and not improving. Audit observations in the red, not improving. Percent NCRs non-sustaining in the red, minor improvement. Procedure ballots, which, if you're a voting member, are in the yellow. But auditor interviews in the green and improving. I don't know if I buy that one, but that's what they said. Possible new metric, merit status stability. How long do you stay on merit and hold it? So there might be a good way to determine the health of the overall program. Let's see. What else do I have here? I got to get moving because we're running out of time.
They trying to knock down the amount of merit people are getting, or what?
No, they want high merit. They do not have the capacity to not have merit. It would completely stall and crash the entire program. I'm serious. There isn't any way. I hear suppliers say that all the time, and I'm like, there isn't any way with this many audits and this many suppliers that they could afford for a big crash in merit. It would just, the program would literally come to a stop. It'd be that bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, any questions on NADCAP or and NADCAP Management Council before I go to AESQ?
No.
Looks pretty. No questions.
Okay, AESQ is the AS 13100. That's the Aerospace Engine Supplier Quality Program that Pratt and GE Aviation and Safran and MTU, all of the engine makers are in this now. And it's a whole separate QMS in addition to, say, your 9100. There's additional lots of additional stuff. So I've been going to the meetings. I don't, they do mostly virtual. I get to a couple live meetings a year. The meetings themselves, for the ones that the suppliers attend, predominantly business, the business of AESQ. But from that, you can glean certain things about the program. One is that when they started this, they identified 6,000 worldwide suppliers that should fall under this. They are running at about, maybe 2,800 tops that are active in it, and literally a handful that have actually been audited by the subscribers and are approved the 13,100. It will likely, I'm sure there are some MTI members who have bumped into 13,100 requirements. Love to hear from you what your experience was, because I think it would be important for everybody to know that. But it's, I think, down at our level where we're 2 and 3 and 4 tiers down, it's going to be a while before, the face of Rolls-Royce or Pratt shows up to do a full-blown 13,100 audit. And they're not going to do it to put you out of business because they can't afford to lose any suppliers. They're going to do it as a opportunity for improvement type of thing. 13,100 Rev A got through ballot, should be published later this month. Keep an eye out for it if you are part of that. And the next meeting will be for open to suppliers will be Poland in May, and after that another Houston in November. And that's all I have at the moment. Any questions?
So Roy, real quick, one of our members asked, this may go back to AMEC more than anything else, but he was saying, speaking of AI, and I think the answer is no, but he asked, are there any developments in specification writing related to AI applications?
No, we haven't heard. We haven't even spoken about AI at all in AMEC meetings or anything like that. I mean, the only thing I've ever seen, I have a quality manager and she uses it to write customer letters. And I mean, that sounds really good and everything.
Right.
As a writing aid, but as far as using it for processing or anything like that, as far as I know, that has not come into play just yet.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point in time we'll start to hear that because it's becoming bigger and bigger. But right now, that's what I thought. I haven't heard anything in the room about it at all.
No.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. So 3 quick things, members, before you leave here. So I put 2 people in the chat box that you want to make note of on cybersecurity. They are the best and really help a lot of our members deal with cybersecurity and CMMC. If you're doing business with the Department of Defense, write their names down and check them out if you need some help there. They're very good. Secondly, pay attention to MTI's Academy. It's AR 1962 qualified for the training. We just added a new employee onboarding module, which is really cool. It takes it automates your entire training process. So take a look at that. And the third thing is on March 18th at 2 o'clock. Look for the invite for March 18th at 2 p.m. for our next Heat Treat Live webcast on regulatory impact. We're going to talk about decarbonization and the movement there. But the bigger thing we're going to talk about, giving an update on, is the air quality standards, which we talked about at the NADCAP meeting at MTI's event. If there's one thing you want to pay attention to, is this. It's going on in California. It's Rule 1435. And the things they're looking to pass could add as much as $1 million of housekeeping and new equipment into your business model and your processes. So you want to keep MTI put 120 grand into a defense fund in California with a group called the California Metals Coalition to help just build awareness and educate the committee looking at this stuff about heat treating and what they don't know. And so far, it's had a massive impact. They were looking to pass stuff by the end of the last year, and they've pushed it off to this year to keep considering it because they're trying to make sure they make the right choice. So pay attention to that. So Thank y'all very much for being in your time. We know it's valuable, and we will see you hopefully on March 18th on regulatory impacts. So have a great day, members. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your content.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it. Nice
Good
seeing
door.
you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good one.